chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You can hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to
Good evening, Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Well, good afternoon. Yes, Sabrina Speaks family, and welcome to Week in Review. Yes, that's today's episode. The headlines this week have stretched from Portland to Caracas, from the Cayman Islands to even London, reminding us that civic life is never confined to borders. Now, each story carries weight, some heavy with questions of justice and sovereignty, while others are hope, marked with milestones in care, resilience, and progress. This evening, we don't just listen, we reflect, we ask, what do these events mean to us, for our communities, for our shared humanity? And most importantly, we must speak, because Sabrina Speaks is not just my voice, it's ours. United in dialogue, rooted in love, and lifted by purpose. So let's journey through this week together, headline by headline, and open mic as well. You are the heartbeat of this conversation. Welcome, one and all. It is another episode of Sabrina Speaks right here on CMRTV.com, where voices of the islands, conversations for the world, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. I'm your host, Sabrina, and it's good to be back with you on this fabulous Friday. I love the weather, but you know what? The content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and or participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. It is not a substitute, for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. So I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. 345-936-8255 is the number to call and be a part of the discussion. After all, it is open mic today. Yes, and it's good to be here with you for sure on this fabulous Friday. Let's just get straight into it with this evening's and tomorrow's weather forecast. Tonight's forecast calls for fair skies with 20% chance of showers. Temperatures will fall to the mid-70s. Winds will be east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots, with some higher gusts mainly across the sister islands. Now, seas will be moderate to rough with wave heights of 4 to 6 feet, and small craft advisory is in effect. Now, tomorrow's forecast calls for fair with 20% chance of showers. Temperatures will rise to the mid-80s with a heat index of 90. Winds will be east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots with some higher gusts, and seas will be moderate to rough with wave heights of 4 to 6 feet. Now, small craft advisory is in effect. The sun will set this evening at 6:03, And tomorrow the sun will rise at 7:02. I always remember Jimbo's a day ahead because tomorrow sunset will be at 6:03. Now, the outlook for the weather here in the beautiful Cayman Islands is that there is a chance for some showers. They are possible from Sunday afternoon as a surface trough is expected to drift south of our area. And a frontal system moving across the Gulf early Monday will also bring an increase of moisture to the extreme Southwest Caribbean. So here you have it. I know the weather here is much better than our people across the pond. That's definite. So yeah, we are just got to give thanks for the beautiful weather that we have here, even though for some it's brutally, it's like a blizzard, and I'll get into that in a second. But we got to keep it real here. It's good to just pay tribute and respect to all of our people who are celebrating birthdays. And like I tell you, once I know about you, I'm going to big you up right here. Thanks to all of the people who are sharing birthday wishes with me and celebrating my friend Tanisha. Yes, on her birthday today, she's celebrating her. Look at her. Yeah, girl. She's celebrating her birthday today, this fabulous Friday. Tanisha is a strong Caymanian, Georgetown Central mama who loves to get involved. Of course, she plays a critical part in her kids' lives, even PTA. She's very vocal, and she's one of those moms that, you know, I can see her with that van, her car just full up with all of the, she's a soccer mom. Yeah, she's one of those. But Tanisha, big ups to you from all of your friends there, even at Slay Beauty Bar. Yeah, girl, Carol and Kaveen, the whole, oh God, yeah, her too. I just had a little blank there. But the crew at Slay, you know exactly who I'm talking about, who's always locked and loaded here on Sabrina Speaks. We want to celebrate and share your birthday with you. I'm quite sure if you're here, because I'm not sure. Carol would fix you up. I know she could give you one little do. There you go. But big up to everybody and happy birthday to all of those who will be celebrating birthdays this weekend or even today that I'm not aware about. But I'm actually thanking you for celebrating with me today, Tanisha. All the best to you, girl, and many, many more to come. Let's say hello to all of those who are joining me. Hello, happy Friday to all of you. It is good to have you all here. Hey, how you doing, Darlene? Happy Friday to you, my sweet. And Damien is with us as usual. Hey, Annie, good evening to you. Good evening to you as well. Plain and straight. It's fabulous Friday. You know, it's a new year, and we have come to the end of officially the official, I call it the work week of 2026, kind of getting us back into the groove. I know some will be still coming in. It's amazing. Some people just stuck at home, and many who traveled for the holidays come back with a really bad bug, a flu-like symptoms and all that sort of stuff. So it is that time of the year. It is that season. And if you're displaying any flu-like symptoms, we're asking you to please stay home, and do what you have to do instead of spreading it. But if you're showing any high-rise temperatures or runny nose, that sort of stuff, just be cautious when you're going out and practice good hand hygiene as well, because it is that time of the year. Hi, Jim. Happy Friday to you, my love. I saw your comment yesterday. I don't think Connie picked it up. But of course, when you got those new parts in, you and Connie gonna take over the dance floor somewhere to break those parts in. I don't think a lot of people saw it, but I saw it. I smiled. Danny was in the height of his conversation when you made your comment, and I'm looking forward to that. I think we would have a blast. They would probably like, we would set a record. We would definitely leave a memory with our personalities from what I'm feeling here. But yes, can't wait. All the best for you as well. So that's Jimbo, and I haven't seen Connie yet. So I'm quite sure she's a bit late to class today, but she will let us know when she's here. And wishing you a great weekend as well. And yes, and eyes on the road. Yeah, I noticed just before coming on, not all of respect of the victim. I shared I got a video that was shared with me That was an MVA, looks like a pedestrian. I don't know. I don't have the details. There was an accident opposite of Silver Sands condo heading into West Bay and just before Cemetery Beach. And there was a lady there, police and everybody was on the scene. But because, out of respect for the victim, I don't have the details. I refuse to actually play the video, but I want to thank all of my supporters for sharing these information with me so that I can let you know exactly what's going on. But what led me to that is Jim's comment here about eyes on the road. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I'm very conscious of that. Usually over the weekend, even with our 911 officials, they will tell you if it's one night, it's like, what happens on a Friday night? It's like everything happens on a Friday night with our first responders, which leads me to say thank you for your service, all of our frontline uniform services and persons working in the medical industry. And when I say uniform services, that includes our Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, the fire, the prison, our 911 personnel, all of you all who, once we go to bed and we're out there having a good weekend and all that sort of stuff, you run in the face of danger. Yes, I'm even talking about my regiment people, even you guys. Coast Guard as well, who are out on the high seas. We know how quickly the weather can change. We thank you for your service and we applaud you. Thank you so much. And kudos to your family who continuously understand the power of shift, the inconveniences sometimes, how much times you're away from your families. We want to thank them for supporting you and thank you for giving of yourself in many times thankless role. But here you are, you've chosen to serve, and it is a different game out there when you're in the uniform service. So yes, thank you from all of us here on Sabrina Speaks. Yes, so much going on. As I said, 345-936-8255 is the number to call to join in on this conversation. We're doing a week in review and some of the headlines that have actually stirred a lot of discussions locally and internationally. And also, we want to hear from you. You're not short of content, that's for sure. It all depends on what you choose, what we want to share. And we're not just pretty much pigeonholing, putting ourselves in a pigeonhole to just deal with local stuff, because we're all connected some way, somehow, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about later on. And now that we go into our Have You Heard local segment, yes, I thought I would share this with you, and thank you to one of our big supporters and listeners here, Sabrina Speaks, who thought it was a gentle reminder and to share this information with you about Cayman Islands residents and Caymanians 65 and over. I wonder if you all remember that you are eligible for a 50% discount on key vehicle and driver's license fees. Yeah, there's also other discounts as well for community support programs. And these benefits, back in the day were aimed to ease financial burden and support on our seniors' independence. So if you are 65 years or older in the Cayman Islands, Caymanian, there are some benefits from this, and you get, including from the DMV, you get 50% off if you should ever need to get a copy of your birth certificate again. And if you still are using a mailbox, postbox rental, you also get $25 off. And guess what? Again, this is for Caymanian 65 years or older. Passport is free. Yeah, you don't pay that filing fee. So for the DMV, for the driver and vehicle license discounts, seniors get 50% off for motor vehicle registration, their license renewal, and their driver's license application and renewals. And should they lose a license plate from their car, they get 33% off of that. Now, like I said, these discounts were introduced under the traffic amendment regulations back in 2021. And at that time, they were a part of the government's effort to support our seniors or silver drivers. So You want to make sure, if you didn't know, I want to remind you of that, just in case those fees don't pick it up when you pick up your date of birth in the system. You're entitled to all of these. So I want to thank that loyal fan and listener of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for sharing and doing that as a gentle reminder and choosing to share that here so I can share that here with you as well. Also, listen to this one. There's also some buzz in the air. Let me get something here. I'm going to share an image. Yeah. There's buzz that there's a high profile visitor on the island. And you may see it if you're on the cmrtv.com. I snatched the picture used there as breaking news, that there's this image that is in circulation and posted there in circulation of former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson was spotted here in the Cayman Islands. Yes. And the sightings have definitely stirred curiosity and definitely speculation about the purpose of the visit. Now, right here, gosh, that man is just enjoying our beautiful weather. But you know how it is in the islands with everything that's going on geopolitically. Is it business? Is it leisure? I mean, that looks very relaxed to me. Look at our weather. But I mean, at the end of the day, look at all that we have to offer here. But is it something more? But, we'll be watching closely and keeping you up to date as details arrives and emerge. And I know that I got some more information as well of other high-ranking officials having been spotted here this week, right here in the Cayman Islands. And don't be surprised, especially during this time of the year, with, the weather that we are having here, that you could spot them either dining or on the beach, be it movie stars, a high-ranking official, but they'll be around. But, there will be speculations once you're a political figure, one wonders. And just because of that, one of the reasons why when I checked just before going live, right now in the UK is being battered. They are right now being battered by a storm called Gotori. Yes, just today, they're actually experiencing blizzards up north and hurricane force winds down south. So why wouldn't he not want to be here if, it's just leisure? Because heavy snows and blizzards are right now affecting large parts of England and Scotland. And, areas like northern Scotland are seeing consistent, sorry for all of my people over there in the United Kingdom, because we know we have a lot of you who tune in as well. But this consistent snowfall, while southern England is dealing with gusty winds and icy rain. Oh my God, you can keep it. But hello, once you're a global figure, be it former or not, global power players land on our shores. When they land here, it's always worth paying attention. So to all of you who are maybe gracing our shores, no matter what the purpose of you being here, welcome to the Cayman Islands. And we're hoping that you are pleased and you'll come back and you'll share your experiences definitely with everyone of how you found our island. Additional information. I was wondering if you've heard as well that the UK is also turning up the heat on overseas territories. That includes here in the Cayman Islands to open up company ownership records to the public. You may have heard this, and it's what it's being called as a acronym PARBO law. It's called the PARBO law, if you haven't heard it before. It is all about transparency is what they're saying, but some say it could actually hurt Cayman's financial sector across the line on privacy. So the big question is, should Cayman comply or push back? So for those of you trying to figure out what the heck is PARBO, Sabrina, speak the language that we know. PARBO stands for Public Access to Registers of Beneficial Ownership. Public access to registers of beneficial ownership. And it's a UK-driven transparency initiative. You hear what I said? It's driven by the UK, aimed at exposing the real individuals that are behind shell companies, combating money laundering, that is the objective of being transparent for this nature, tax evasion and corruption, and aligning with global anti-corruption standards. Now, the UK Parliament, for a bit of historical context, passed legislation back in 2020 requiring all British overseas territories to implement public registers by 2023. But delays, and in some cases, even resistance, especially from financial centers like us here in the Cayman Islands and the British Virgin Islands, have pushed the issue into this year of 2026. So pretty much what is happening now, we're now in 2026, and what we're found is Dame Hodge, the UK's anti-corruption champion, you heard it, has warned that if overseas territories don't comply by mid-2026, the United Kingdom may impose law unilaterally using an order in council. And that is a legal mechanism, for those of you who don't really understand that overrides local government. Do you understand? So there is a signal giving this jurisdiction until mid-2026 or else. So some overseas territories argue that, the full public access could really violate privacy rights and damage their jurisdiction, financial services, and even the entire industry. And you will have transparency advocates, including Transparency International United Kingdom, saying that these delays are undermining the United Kingdom's credibility and also enabling financial crime. So you kind of scratch your head and you listen to the conversations that are being had, understanding that the Cayman Islands depends on tourism and our financial services. And now you're having these demands, this drive by the United Kingdom, our mother country. We are a British overseas jurisdiction. And with this increased UK pressure, and our Cayman Islands as a major financial center is under the spotlight with mother country. If we don't fully implement this PARBO soon, you heard, the UK could force compliance, and the consequences of that potentially straining Cayman and UK relationships. We don't know. We have to wait. Let's hear what our Minister of Financial Services will say, and our Premier, and also the Minister of Finance, government, the elected arm as a whole. And that is why these relationships between Her Excellency, the Governor, the representative of the King, is critical, because it's through that channel, should this country need additional time for whatever reason, the relationship, the rapport, that's where that mediator comes in as the King's representative, looking at the impact on our financial services, understanding that the Cayman Islands do depend on income from financial services. Our financial sector thrives on client confidentiality. Making ownership data public could actually deter some clients. It could actually create that environment that shifts businesses to less transparent jurisdiction, or even require major regulatory and IT upgrades as well. And another thing is that reputation and compliance. On the flip side of this, because it's not only one-sided, full compliance as being imposed or being asked of the United Kingdom could actually boost Cayman's global reputation. Because for transparency, that's where I'm coming from with that, it could actually help avoid blacklistings, which we saw what that exercise was like, getting us off the gray list at one, minister, the current premier now and his team did a lot of work to get us off that list. and being on that list now imposed by the European Union or other international bodies. And what this could also do, if we come in full compliance with these demands, it could align Cayman with global anti-corruption norms, which puts us in a different spotlight again. So maybe this may actually spark some more local debate, public debate in Cayman. Maybe it may attract more who are in the financial industry, but when these orders come down, it's in everybody's best interest from a civic standpoint. Everyone should matter, but some of the public discussion and public debate could be about the balance between the privacy and transparency as being asked for, and more debate could be for the limits of the UK's authority over British overseas territory jurisdictions, especially when it comes that it's could possibly have unintended consequences of one of our main income revenue streams. And it also debates could ensue as to the future of Cayman's financial model. So there you have it. Let's see what's going to come of that. And we'll be keeping you up to date as well here on that once this becomes more. And I'm hoping that, our government officials will be on more, or there will be more PR on this to keep us aware of what's happening. But right now, they've been given until mid of 2026. You know what mid-year is, June, around there, thereabouts. They didn't say, it's just said mid of 2026. Hi, Marshall, how are you? Good to see you here. Happy Friday to you, my sweet. Jimbo is saying, and because there are those few unscrupulous characters out there who are scammers and corrupt, everyone else has to be penalized, forcing individuals to have to expose more and more information of persons who are decent and law-abiding. Jim, yeah, this is where I guess you call it the innocent suffering for the guilty here, because you're quite right. We have done everything in order to try and make sure that we are in compliance. And when I was sitting around certain tables, you could see the frustration building from the financial industries team, from the elected arm, saying it looks like they keep pushing it. You meet this compliance, you get in line with this, and then they kick the can or they put the goalpost further down, and there's always something else. And we celebrated getting off of that list, but then it's almost like you're holding your breath. What next? So yeah, let's see where this ends up, but we'll definitely be keeping our fingers here on the pulse in regards to this. But that just shows, and again, thank you for highlighting that again. Danny, he sent that to me, sharing that with me. Thank you so much for putting that. And I'm happy that I was able to break it down for you in a small chunk, but hoping when our officials do get on public platform, it won't take you by surprise, and that you can remember that we broke it down here as best as we could in layman's terms for you to understand. Plain and Straight says, I fully agree that authorities should be able to get information on beneficial owners. So we see the flip side. Hence, I don't just go from one perspective. I show both sides. Plain and Straight also says, but not the public. That would be like demanding that the banks post the names and account numbers of all of their customers. Yeah, that's another thing. So these are some of the questions, thought-provoking questions. What if? Now, if it's only for the UK to be in compliance, but where does that leave common day-to-day citizens, like how you can go in and get certain information, even on properties and lands? Any Joe can go off the road now and say, give me a copy of this block and parcel, and you can walk out with it. I mean, yeah. So let's see where this goes, Plain and Straight. It'll be interesting, though, how it actually plays out. So there's no telling. Financial things are definitely changing. And for us to remain competitive, like we said, there's so much at stake when you look at it to keep, well, first of all, attracted, to keep revenues coming in. This is why it's good to diversify your income streams as small island developing states. because at any point in time, you see what is could happen. What if? You always have to be prepared for what if, okay? And tourism, financial services, and there's a competition as to whether or not, those two are competing, but the financial industry. And then the persons are saying we need to look at other industries that possibly can also drive income to the jurisdiction, create jobs, give more opportunities for locals. We're seeing what's happening right now with travel and tourists. And this is why other small island jurisdictions in the region, especially the CARICOM leaders, are coming together despite them having their own sets of challenges. We're going there. With what's happening geopolitically, looking at the impact in which is happening in our region now with tourism and the flow of movement of persons that is actually hitting their bottom line. It is important that we all keep awake, alert of what's happening, just as we are with the financial industry and these demands being made by our mother country and tourism alike. So they all come together. That keeps us going. And government does depend on monies made from these industries in order to pay our bills. Yeah, they do. Plain and straight. Says, okay, yes, sorry, I thought I had missed something there. Let's do have you heard international now. Let's go into the international scene. 345-936-8255. The phone lines are open. Should you want to join us in this open mic Friday, we're right now covering some headlines that have been really sparking discussions, despite just what's going on in the United States with all of the protests still going on with ICE and everything. There's stuff that is happening, well, not dismissing that at all, but Pope Leo speaks on Venezuela. Even the Pope is weighing in on this. Yes. And Pope Leo is calling out the United States of America, and he's not holding back. Even the Pope is speaking from St. Peter's Square, and he slammed what he calls a growing zeal for war. And urged leaders to respect the will of the Venezuelan people. He's deeply concerned about the United States military role in Venezuela, and especially after the recent capture of their president. Now, Pope Leo says diplomacy is being replaced by force, and that's dangerous. His message: the good of the beloved Venezuelan people must prevail over every consideration. Now, it's a rare movement when it's a rare moment when you get the Pope speaking this boldly about global politics, and it's got people talking, let me tell you. Now, this man didn't spare no punches. He just went off, and he definitely spoke his mind. Hey, Donnie, how you doing? Happy Friday. Hope you're recovering well. Lavana, how is she? I haven't heard from her in a while. I hope she's doing okay. When I see you, Donnie, you triggers Lavana. I'm hoping that she's fine. But yeah, it's good to have you with us, and happy weekend to you. Hope you enjoy the weekend. Also, bringing it back home in another Have You Heard? It's regional. Yeah, because we're keeping it real. CARICOM new chair. He's the Prime Minister, Terence Drew, from St. Kitts and Nevis right now. Oh my God, sorry to hear that, Donnie, but I'm going to digress a little bit. Got to make sure that we take care of all of our people here. Recovery is going to be a bit rough, but just do those physios and you'll be up in no time. Me, you, and a couple of the other people will take on a dance floor like the good old days, huh? Wishing you and sending you all our love. Yes, getting back to what's happening right now with the CARICOM Prime Minister, Terence Drew of St. Kitts and Nevis, who's now definitely under some serious fire. Let me tell you, this has caught the news platforms of pretty much the entire Caribbean. He now quietly, from what is in the the public's domain, he quietly signed a deal with the United States. And we mentioned it here the other day on another Have You Heard segment, but it had just happened. But what he did, apparently, he signed a deal quietly with the US to accept deportees, not from his own country, like they're sending back people from St. Kitts and Nevis who were deported from the US, but from across the Caribbean, anyone. He quietly entered that agreement. And what he is facing is criticisms because these critics say that it was done without even consulting other CARICOM leaders, is what is being alleged. And they're calling it a betrayal of regional unity. And PM Drew, he says that St. Kitts can still accept or reject each case. And that deal excludes Haitians and violent offenders. So there's a big question that remains, though, with what's happening regionally. Even though the Cayman Islands is not a full member state of CARICOM, the question is still there. Should one leader, and especially all of those full state CARICOM members, should one leader, because they are the leader, make a deal that affects the whole Caribbean? That's the big question that remains. And what that happened is that, this MOU, excluding Haitians and individuals with violent sex crimes and criminal records. But what he's saying to kind of hoping, I guess, he would lessen the backlash against him is that they still, built into this MOU, as he's trying to explain, that the St. Kitts and Nevis still have the right to reject each deportee on a case-by-case basis. The deal, of course, was not discussed as what is being alleged with other CARICOM leaders. And because of that is why it has triggered backlash, literally to the point that it's angered some of the other CARICOM leaders. And what you may say, well, what the heck does that have to do with us? It has a lot to do with us because what is happening, full CARICOM member states or not, what it is setting is a regional precedent. Yes. And this could actually do that, setting this precedent for the US to approach other small Caribbean nations, including ourselves, with similar proposals. And if more countries agree, it could really reshape how deportation and migrations are handled across the region. So it begs then to question sovereignty and just overall trust. Now, and a little information about CARICOM, if you didn't know, they operate on a consensus and collaboration. A unilateral deal like this could undermine, meaning him agreeing this on his own, as is alleged, could undermine the trust between other member states and even those of us, including Cayman. And right here at home, Cayman may need to reassess their own immigration and repatriation policies, as we are seeing more jurisdictions within our region taking on these individuals in light of this shift. Now, what is happening is that it has also grown into more conversation about security and resources of all of these jurisdictions that are agreeing to take on these deportees or persons that are not wanted by the United States, because they're saying the small island development states in itself hosting deportees, even temporarily, would require enhanced infrastructure and security and even social services. And some of them are already grappling with their own locals and not being able to meet the needs of their own people. Now, for us here in Cayman, we would really need to consider whether we even have the capacity or political will to take on such a role. But for what we're seeing, almost like a bullish mentality and what's happening in the region, if this is what is being pressured and they're being dumped into the Caribbean region, it's going to be interesting how this all unfolds. Now, the public sentiment, as I said, from what I am getting and based on all the resources and sources that I'm seeing coming in, the deal has already sparked, as I said earlier on, public criticism in St. Kitts, even amongst their own. If what would happen if a similar proposal were made here in Cayman? Now, you think we got problem now? What would be the case around sovereignty? Yeah, now you would be, I'm hoping that you would be more vocal, because it could ignite again public debate around safety, regional responsibility as well, and the very same word that I was breaking down the other day, the meaning of sovereignty. Remember, we're a British overseas territory jurisdiction. You see what imposition right now they're imposing on us to get our house in order in the financial industry. We're opening up our books and all that sort of stuff by mid-2026. And even though we're not a full member of CARICOM, only an associate member, Cayman, then, even though this has happened by the leader of CARICOM, technically, we are not bounded by the actions of CARICOM's decisions or their agreements, like what Drew has signed with the United States of America. But here's where, and I want you to bear this in mind, here is why it still matters for Cayman and why each of you should really care, because of exactly what I said earlier on. It is setting a precedent. And even though we are not a full CARICOM member, the US may view the region, as a block. He just sees it as one big block when negotiating deportation logistics. And if one small island agrees to, let's say, host third country deportees, others, including British overseas territories jurisdiction, could actually be approached next. I'm not saying we have to give in. We don't have to capitulate. We don't have to say yes. But the key is there's nothing stopping them from approaching. And like I said, what is being reported by St. Kitts, they could refuse or they can accept. But there's also a risk that they could seek refuge in nearby territories, including right here in the Cayman Islands, given its economic stability. So we're not out of the woods just because, one, we're a British overseas territory jurisdiction, two, because we're not a full CARICOM member state. That doesn't limit the risk of persons fleeing here at some point. Remember, I spoke in earlier podcast about human migration because of what's happening in the region. And there could be implications of diplomatic ripples, as I label it, where Cayman, we know, often aligns with CARICOM on other natural disasters, on regional issues, when it comes to trade. And yes, some conversations about migration. But this deal in itself that has happened pretty much in isolation could strain regional unity. It has already shown signs of muddying the water, and I don't think they have been in that seat for 2 weeks fully yet. I stand to be corrected. So Cayman may be pressured to take a stance at some point in time. We don't know, especially if the UK or the US asks for BOTCs to do their part. Do we have to say yes? Understanding our size, our resources, we realize that we have been dealing with even the Cuban migrants who come here, and we've seen the damage done to a lot of our facilities, and we are already down on facilities in the event of hurricane shelter space and all that sort of stuff. Some of the places that we were using to shelter our Cuban refugees have just been destroyed. And should this country be faced with even more persons fleeing from other jurisdiction because of what's happening right now in the Western Hemisphere, are we prepared? So even without direct involvement, to be honest with you, Cayman's public may have to, at some point, our elected arm may have to react to this, or at least be prepared should the question come in hosting non-Caymanian deportees, because this could definitely influence local immigration policy, border security, and definitely public discourse. So I just hope that when it comes to transparency and openness with the people of the Cayman Islands, that these things are all on the forefront. And should it actually become a reality, that we too will be abreast of what plans and the funding and all that sort of stuff. Because remember yesterday I was telling you about the 7 broad outcomes for what this government wants to actually deliver. And I can assure you, they weren't prepared for this. So here we go again for unexpected realities of natural disasters, in this case, regional unrest, geopolitical impacts, other pandemics, or whatever. But would we have ever thought that we would be having the discussions in this region of the world as it pertains to possible war? No one knows, right? So it is real. It is real of what's happening around us. Yes. There's a question here from Harry Brandon. The Cayman Islands are British overseas territory. Are they not like Bermuda, British Virgin Islands and Bermuda? Yes, we are British overseas territory. I don't think the US would threaten a British overseas territory. We hope not, to be honest with you, but a lot of people have said that, oh no, he's only talking. And then what happens when things are executed? These are real happenings, what is happening. And I bet you'd never say certain things that are happening right now in the region would ever happen either, but it's real. Yeah. Harry says, yeah, but the UK doesn't really override the Cayman government, and most things where the UK gets more oversight are agreed by both governments, I thought. Yes, there is dialogue, but we have never seen this type of geopolitical pressure either within the region. And we just have to see it play out. Harry also says that the UK would veto the US doing that in a heartbeat. Well, let's hope so, Harry. And I'm quite sure that we are not going to sit down and be quiet, and we'll just have to wait. Harry also says, I don't see the British government allowing America to drop off deportees, considering the massive immigration problem in mainland Britain. That is a political scandal in itself. Yes, I've been watching that as well. I am from the mainland of the remnants of our once great empire. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yes. Do you not think the British government were trying to intervene to support the Cayman government if it really wanted to? Oh, yeah. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But what I'm saying is, not being in those highest of talks with the geopolitical tensions that we're seeing arise right now, I can see those conversations now being ensued, taking on a different climate or a different temperature. But there's no doubt as to whether or not, Harry, my problem is that proximity matters. Proximity matters. And there's no doubt as to whether or not they would step in. I did not ever think that they wouldn't. But the biggest takeaway here is sovereignty is being questioned and proximity matters. Keith Arrett, it's good to have you here with us. Being a British overseas territory is going to be the downfall of the Cayman Islands. Why would you say that? I'd just like to get your feedback on it, Keith. What would you think would be the alternate choice? Independence? I don't think. And that's for public discussion that we're anywhere ready for that. Oh, heck no. What would be your alternate then, Keith, if we get to that point where we're saying, as you alluded to, that being a BOTC is going to be the downfall of us here in the Cayman Islands? I'd like you to weigh in more on that, or feel free, Keith. 345-936-8255. There's WhatsApp. You can even call. Join me on WhatsApp as well. Harry Brandon 2730 says, Keith, that is bullocks. I have a friend who used to use that word a lot. That's bullocks. The only reason the Cayman Islands and most of the Caribbean isn't under the foot of America, it's because they have extremely good relations or are under the British. Bullocks. I can hear my friend using that word right now, Harry. Oh my goodness. Brought back some memories there. Dean says, was in Town Civic Center that the Cubans, and they also burnt down, there had 2 fires at the detention center as well across from Triple C School. If I'm not mistaken, there was a place in Breakers as well, their town hall that's across from the Lighthouse Club. I stand to be corrected, that was damage. And also, I think the Civic Center, not up on John McLean Drive, the other one that's close to Tuca, that was also received some damage as well. So it's not like we haven't tried to house them to the point where government has even rented private dwellings while their applications were being processed, and people were cringing when they rented their homes or apartments to them. They were just destroying places. So yeah, Dean, you are quite right. Even the temporary center, they actually had burned down. Pleaded straight, bullocks. Great word that I haven't heard that in the longest time. I tell you, pleaded straight. When I saw it, I was like, oh my God, so much memories of a dear friend that I have constantly used it. And I chuckled to myself. Yes, Harry, I know the constitutional thing about Britain and its overseas territories in the Crown dependency and all of that, but I'm not in on local politics of it all. But you're pretty much versed, and I'd say you're hitting it on the head for where we are now with the discussions, to be honest. But with the local politics here, we do have conversations that have ensued, Harry, as to whether or not you have those who are just totally against the British, despite us being a British overseas territory, and they wouldn't want anything else better than for us to no longer be ruled by the United Kingdom. That is hands down. It has publicly a lot here who share those sentiments, have that feeling. But the reality is, are we ready to, one, be independent? If you're not a BOTC, then what? And I feel that that's where the conversation didn't go. If you're not, then what are you going to be? Where then, if it's independence you're wanting, are we ready? Are we mature enough for it? And that has been ongoing conversations for a year, Harry. So that's really what's on the ground. You speak to some, they'll be outright open and say, look here, we're not ready for that. We're just not ready for independence. Whether or not they agree with us and how the UK is structured and what they demand of us. But you have some that are just totally anti, and they cringe at the fact that we're a British overseas territory jurisdiction. Damien Henry, with all the geopolitical unrest going on in the world right now, it's only a matter of time before the big boys turn on each other for not seeing eye to eye. Damien, you and many others share that same sentiment. And I guess it will make sense in time when I say proximity matters, just because of where we're located. And I don't think it should be brushed under the rug or taken for granted, because of our share where we're located, that it's at the end of the day, we could feel it. Harry, so is there a serious independence movement within the Cayman or in other British overseas? Not at this time. And if it is, it must be a silent undercurrents. But I'm telling you, it all depends on what conversations you have and with whom and what forums. It has been, some are very strongly against being British overseas territories and very much against the thing. But you're not going to have it like, you're not going to have what you're having over there with these public display of we want to get out from under the UK. No, we're not that type of culture. But I'm just saying, if you get the right grouping and the right conversations, you could have a good mixture of those who are for and those who are like, no, because we are not politically mature enough to even have this conversation. And we still have a lot to be considered, weighing the pros and cons, Harry. I get there are individuals who think that Britain has been trying to screw them over ever since we got Cayman Islands, and yes, you do. And history repeats itself with slavery and how they feel persons are looked down. This is just for conversational purposes, based on the perspective of some who are just totally against it. And the history goes back to being labeled as they're making their benefits and their monies from other overseas territories. And then pretty much we have to do as we're told when we're independent and we're trying to say it's a democratic society, but technically we're not. So, Harry, it all depends on who you speak to. But I think it would be fair to say that based on the conversations, you will have those who are just says, I wish we were not. I wouldn't care if it happened tomorrow, that we were no longer under or controlled by the United Kingdom. And then you'll have those that will say, okay, fine. Yeah, but then what? How? Where are we going to go? So it'll be interesting for who you speak to, the feedback that you get. Jim, Cayman would go to hell if it went independent. See what I'm telling you, Harry? Yeah. And when you look at what it takes for a jurisdiction to become independent, I think people need to do the research as well and look at what has happened to other jurisdictions that have chosen that route for whatever reason. And you can see what has happened. Again, political maturity, the education of your people, looking at it from all sides, not just for the pros, not just for the cons, but look at it full circle of what that means and what that could mean for the way of life, what that could mean for our currency. Do we have any natural resources that could maintain us if we were to come from under the United Kingdom? Now, I'm just speaking here for the purpose of what we're speaking, but there are a lot of things that go into that. Your constitutional changes, and even though Jamaica is independent, we know that their judiciary system is still somewhat governed by UK's laws. So at the end of the day, they're trying to become a republic that not even their judicial system is looked at or bounded by UK's laws. And how much years has that happened? And they're still not completely detached from the United Kingdom. So, Jimbo, I see your statement, and I'm quite sure a lot more people would say that as well. Harry, I don't think any of the remaining territories of Britain will ever go independent. I don't think they have the capacity to go independent. That aligns with what Jim is saying, and I'm quite sure unless there's something else afoot, I don't see it either unless we're going to go Dutch, we're going to go Canadian, we're going to go American, but independent for what independence is on its own. What's your other alternative? I would love to ensue some conversations with others who would be pro removal of ourselves from the UK to see, and then what? Just to hear exactly where they're going, if it's thought through. Because like I said, you do have a number of very astute Caymanians persons who are civic minded, who have their walking encyclopedias that are pro removal, that are would support it now. But what does the majority say? And have we even really explored it? Have we looked deeper into it to see the pros, the cons, what are the consequences what would be the plan B? What is the alternative then outside of just going independent? Dean also says, I'm guessing those buildings got insurance. Oh, you mean government? Yeah, somewhat. Yes, they do. They do. Harry, I mean, look at Scotland. They wanted independence, but then they wanted to immediately sign upon independence and currency agreement, customs union, and single market. Yeah, that's interesting. See, at the end of the day, your British accent sucks. Thank you for your opinion. I don't give a crap. I don't have a British accent. And if you caught me at Bullocks, I don't have a British accent. But you're entitled to your Oz. You're entitled to your opinion. Thank you for the chuckle. Harry said, so if Scotland is that dependent on Britain, how is any of the extremely small British overseas territories, jurisdiction, and crown dependencies ever going to be able to do it? Harry, that is, again, leads into exactly what I'm saying. You said, you mean technically Britain isn't a democratic society. You have a governor. We have a House of Lords. Yes, and the governor is here being paid by the people of the Cayman Islands. She works very closely with her elected arm. And there's a deputy governor that is in law and constitution must be a Caymanian, who's head of our civil service. And they have close ties, but we know who the governor of the Cayman Islands is here for as a representative of the king. And it is for that reason why she's here. So no part of the UK is really a democracy if you get into quirks of the British Constitution, especially Sark, which is completely mad. I agree with you there. Damien, respectfully, the Cayman Islands does not have the infrastructure to go independent, to be able to sustain itself. Damien, I think a lot of people would agree with you on that, but then you have another number of people that would actually challenge you on that as well. But I would love to hear the other part of how, which is why I say I would love to see all sides of it. But keep your comments coming in. And again, feel free. Don't be scared. Call in. It's always good to get your live feedback. 345-936-8255. Harry says, I think if you look at it seriously, there is no possible way with its current economic system and tax regime it could ever afford to. I know the standard of life and living would not be the same. That's a given. That's a given. What we're used to right now would actually take a jolt. Just look at what's happened everywhere else. So at the end of the day, I feel what we're accustomed to now, and even questions are being asked whether or not we can even sustain what we're having. We're having cries, Harry, every day, which is a cry of everywhere right now of how high the cost of living is here in the Cayman Islands. And we are rated the highest, one of the highest in the world jurisdictions to live in. So I know for sure our quality of life will change. Our way of life will also change. And you will probably find a lot of Caymanians, even though our true generational indigenous Caymanians are falling because of our birth rate of generational Caymanians or Caymanians is so low. We can't keep up with the growth and demand. It's estimated that our true generational population, and I stand to be corrected on this, is within the 20% of our population. So, Harry, it's some interesting times we were about to face, but these are the conversations as we continue to see the geopolitical tensions, the climate unrest here in the Cayman Islands. And we're going to have level heads, discussions, be real. Some strong conversations are going to be had. even emotive conversations around tables as well. So it's going to be interesting how it all unfolds. Do all of the functions of state, of which some are fully covered by British, are or partially covered by Britain, tend to be most expensive? Yeah, you know what? Bermuda, yeah, is going through the same thing because their system as well depends on financial services, just like us, and tourism. And it's the same complaint there. And it's the same cries of the Bermudan people: cost of living, way of life, job opportunities, and protecting who they are. It's no different here. Hmm. Why some people just don't go sit down. Darlene, which one that for? I know you're commenting on probably a statement that was made. I laugh at them, my love. Uh, Such as the military and foreign office, and yeah. Hmm. We only have the Cayman Islands Regiment right here, and they are trained, getting trained. There's trying to, that only came about in 2021 officially, so we're very young in it, but we're not ready for the independence part of it for yet. They would have to partner with other regional partners, which, to be honest with you, we have maintained good relationships with our brothers and sisters in the region. And I don't see, if that is even the conversation, Harry, that to be had, this thing about anti-CARICOM, that may be a benefit if that's the conversation that's going to be had. Now, I'm not taking it either way or the other. We're just having this online conversation of some of the options, if that's where we're going to go. And for military support and all that sort of stuff, all of those things are to be taken into consideration. And I would also point out, Harry says, that if the Cayman Islands were to ever fall into any trouble, such as a debt crisis or something like that, Britain has always intervened to save them. That you will have some persons possibly sit on the fence with that, because that's one thing. Yes, we have maintained our best to make sure that we comply with the FFR standards, so that the United Kingdom does not have to tell us when we can go to buy a roll of toilet paper or not to run this country. And that is one of the biggest things that the Caymanian people, once that was in a case where the government of the day had, I wouldn't use the word mishandled funds, but whatever the spending was to the income was so bad that the UK got involved. And there was a national sense that the people of the Cayman Islands would not want to have that ever happen again. So yes, they would come in, but so far we have been one of the children of the United Kingdom that does not heavily depend on the United Kingdom. We have been able to, in colloquial terms, sit on our own bottoms, every tub on their own bottom, despite us being a British overseas. Now they have come, they have visited, they have promised support if needs be, and I would be lying, having been a former Minister of Home Affairs in a political arm. The relationships have been good, and I can only speak during my time. And I didn't expect that to be any different moving forward. Now, that's government by government, and I can just tell you, as being that former Minister of Home Affairs, that the relationships there, the support was hands down. That was a very good synergy. And the people that I interacted with was really accommodating as well. If they went independent, that stops them, not 100%. Sure, but I would think that the Cayman Islands would have been hit hard by the 2000. Yes, we did, but we managed to rebound. We're paying off some debts as well. And I could say that we continue to grow in our industry. Now, of course, what's happening in the Western Hemisphere, Harry, has everyone now looking, and I'm quite sure there's going to be no difference with our specialists and our leaders in the financial industry, national security and all that, with what's happening here, that they're not sitting down and looking at the what ifs. We have seen inflation. We have seen the cost of food. We have seen where shipping lines and just sustainability is a big question as well. Some of the regular things that small island development jurisdictions face, we're no different. But yes, we did feel that crash. But to say that it was anything major like some of the other countries, some may have felt it a little bit more than others, but we're feeling post COVID just like everybody else as well. We're seeing the shockwaves. We're seeing it at the pumps. We're seeing it at the grocery stores. I shop. So I'm telling you, we have some of the highest imports from the United States to Cayman Islands, ranked the top of the list. So yeah, from 2008 to everything that happens, anything happens in the US, we feel it. Anything happens in the world, we feel it a little bit more than other places because we have high import. We are a high importation jurisdiction. And I'm pretty sure they would have received a lot of support from the central government, Westminster, to sustain itself in such period of time. I'm quite sure they would have, but I stand to be corrected. I don't think it was really needed during that time. Again, I stand to be corrected. Right now, we are pretty much operating on our own with good oversight, as long as the budgets are within certain standards and we have X amount of days of reserves and we fall within the parameters that is set for this government to run. You weigh your incomes of the government, you weigh your expenditure. We look at the needs of nationally for a healthcare education. We fund those capital projects. We deal with the operational arm and we can forecast, which is why infrastructure, tourism, financial industry, see what planning is doing, what's in the fort. That's all revenues coming in to keep us running. And forecasting is key where budgeting is concerned. And what we have noticed, the first financial year for this new government began on the 1st of January. And we will see how that is managed, I guess, with everything that's happening in the region right now. They may have to, based on how things play out, we don't know. Some of the things may actually be, we have to continue, make the wheels running, turning, but nobody can tell me that their eyes are not wide open with what's happening and how it could impact one sector from the other. We're big on medical tourism here. We're getting into the sports tourism as well, trying to diversify our income streams, but the key pillars still remain financial industry and tourism. And we're seeing where tourism took a hell of a hit during COVID, even though the financial industry sustained us and kept us going, and even real estate, just because we created that atmosphere where we were moving around when other people were locked down. All hands are needed on deck right now, and open discussions and dialogues will be key with experts, and just keeping ahead of everything, but not hiding under a rock will be our success. But I figured that one, Darlene. I figured it out after a while. What do you think of ideal Kanza? What do you think of the idea of Kanzak? Explain that to me. Kanzak. Harry, do you think the Commonwealth nations are a good thing? They all serve their purpose. I just think people are looking for action-driven organizations right now, Harry, to be honest, my humble opinion. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Darlene, for saying that. For those who didn't know me, and you went with me from West Bay Primary, so you know. Doesn't the Turks and Caicos Islands have their constitution suspended until the Yes. Yes, they did. And it's the same thing that is on a watchful eye, which is why we try to cross our T's and dot our I's for everything, Harry. But like how you have this thing with the United Nations and NATO and all this sort of stuff, and please correct me if I'm going off on a different angle here, Harry. I think people now, with everything that's happening, we're realizing that these great forums, they're looking at international treaties and laws and governance for sovereignty and democracy and all this sort of stuff. But you don't realize the amount of loopholes until it takes one stronghold to actually execute on what others would say, that's just blah, blah. And people are actually losing their faith. Trust is becoming diluted into some of these Commonwealth nations, as you've alluded to, and these groupings of jurisdictions to come supposedly in unison and to actually work in the best interest of self-governing jurisdictions. And I feel that it always points back to our political leaders. And this is where civic education is pivotal. It is critical. It is vital. It is the bedrock of the trajectory of your country. Who you elect, the egos, and even what's happening with how they can actually represent the will of the people. Where the Cayman Islands, Harry, though, is a little handcuffed, is because we're still governed then by the UK. And to really, yes, with being a part of this and being a BOTC, to crack down on corruption and restore public finances, that is one of the things I feel that the bar is set so high for the Cayman Islands, because remember now, we were known in all the movies, this is a place to come and hide your dirty money. And we're trying to clean up that reputation. We're doing our best now, still being a tax-free jurisdiction, even though some people will argue that they would prefer it to know what you're paying for, because tax-free with the cost of living being so high, sometimes if you were to see the value, this is conversations that are being had, they would understand why the cost of living here is so high. But I think it's because of us still being a British overseas territory jurisdiction is why we're seeing like our border, national security, our ports now are under scrutiny, the checks and balances to actually get a handle on all of these nefarious activities or lessen the risks of trafficking, be it weapons, drugs, or money laundering and all that sort of stuff. So I think because we have to adhere to the rules of being a British overseas territory citizen, not to tell you that there aren't some loopholes and stuff isn't happened, stuff has not happened. History has it in itself. There are books that really confirms crap was happening, but that was back then. As we continue to modernize and grow and our legislation continues to get updated, and we see for us to remain competitive, there are just certain things to protect our reputation so that we can maintain this standard and quality of life. Sometimes you got to concede and you got to do what is being asked of you in order to maintain a reputational standard so that in return, your people could maintain a certain level of life, quality of life, and lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Hey, Miss Melita, happy Friday to you. Yes, and likewise, have a safe weekend to you as well. I am fine, thank you. I hope you're doing well. I mean, I think we all agree that Donald Trump is a nut job, but I don't think he is completely insane to the point of threatening any part of the UK. I agreed with you earlier on, but it is what if. And even with the relationships that we've seen, how King Charles entertained him over there, I'm quite sure a lot of the stuff that we're seeing earlier last year or mid last year wasn't just so. And I agree with you. Whatever works, I think we're now being protected as a BOTC because of the relationships that what appears in the public's domain, a good rapport between the two leaders right now. Whether that'll be Cayman Islands or South Georgia. Mm-hmm. Dignity, we Pakistani hates Trump because we love so much. Okay. So do you have a Labor-like government or conservative? Right now we have a coalition government. We have a coalition government that is made up, our cabinet right now, Harry, is made up of 3 independents, 3 from one party and 2 from another party. So our cabinet consists of 8 elected members, and it's a coalition government that have signed a MOU that they're going to work together despite them being a coalition government in the best interest and for the well-being of our Cayman Islands. And also, does the Cayman Islands and its people track British politics as like quite quiet in a background thing? We actually, yeah, you have a lot of people. Our government radio station, Harry, has on every night live coverage from the BBC. That has been something that I raised up here as a child many years, here going to bed at night. And you have right now, with the power of what we're available to, what is available to us just from the palm of our hands, people are following it. It's not only the UK. With everything that's happening, people are following Africa. They're following everywhere. They're following China, Canada. We're no longer just in this space of the Caribbean, Harry. I think everyone right now who has an interest in civics, current events, are actually tuning in some way, somehow. Podcasts are seeing an increase in persons because tuning in, even if it's after something goes live and it's after the fact, people do tune in and they're asking questions. Many a times, our culture here, Harry, is that persons don't really become very vocal in public stage. They actually would prefer to speak to you off air, and they would prefer to give you a call or drop you a line after the fact. We still have that more private way of, and that is one culture that we're trying to break, and we're hoping that people are encouraged to speak out and speak up a little bit more, because we normally do it behind closed doors more than in open public forums. You would have some people that are willing to do it, but it's the same set of people that do it. I mean, I think the biggest problem has been the pathetic response by the European and oh, okay. Yep. I don't like Pedro Sanchez, who is the Prime Minister of Spain, but I've got to say his policy regarding Donald Trump has been spot on. I got to follow him up. I just popping it up on different things. I'll look more into that. That's an interesting story about the dirty money. I did a lot of research into what Britain's debt post World War and tried to maintain its position as a world power. Yeah, a lot of that is from here. But yeah, if you go back and you find some stories about the Cayman Islands, it'll be interesting. It is alleged, or I have to use the word alleged because I can't point you to the true source right now. But there are books out there that says it used to come in the suitcases, like just as a carry-on luggage back in the day. Mm-hmm. And what's they ended up doing was they began setting up something called Eurodollar market. Think I'm missing this. The market was once checked as 9.3 trillion, estimated to be 20. Wow, pounds. Shaka Zulu, good evening. Happy Friday to you, my sweet. Arguably, I might add, the clean up that reputation at the expense of locals becoming unbanked. Okay, I get you. Yeah, unbanked. Lord. We still got a way to go though, but it's I think, Shaka Zulu, I stand to be corrected. When you look at just trying to open up a regular bank account, even as a student saver, oh my God, the hoops and hurdles. So this know your customer thing is on steroids. And for what you have to go through, I know just setting up a new business account here, for the stuff that I had to, it was easy enough for me because I'd done it multiple times before. But for the average person, it's not easy getting anything done here. Just like setting up a Western Union account for whatever reason. OMG, it's something else. What this market was is you could register a fund in the Cayman Islands and a couple of other BOTs with one document, no input check, no output check, and no oversight of funds. Oh, really? Interesting. Sean Tweed says there's no free speech in the UK, period. If the US can fight back against it, I'm all for it. There's no free speech in the United Kingdom, period. If the US can fight back against it, I'm all for it. So, yeah. But Where we're going as a jurisdiction, I really feel with the temperature, the climate, it's like almost the world is changing by the minute. And what we're seeing is definitely the United States appearing in this Western region, posturing themselves that I'm the big sheriff in town. I said that yesterday or day before yesterday. And because of that, now we're seeing where some are just pissed off at the way in which he's doing it. And others are like, yay, it's about time that, you know, we deal with the importation of drugs or trying to deal with those persons who are traffickers, that sort of stuff. So for whatever it is, and from whatever perspective it is clear who is posturing themselves, what jurisdiction is posturing themselves to say, look, not on my front step. So at the, you know, Sean, don't start spewing that. Oh, okay. You're responding to the Sean guy. The UK has never had freedom of speech. It has something called freedom of expression. You can disagree with the government. You can disagree with any individual about anything. But what you cannot do is go around insulting people and just being a knobhead. I would love to hear you with this accent, Harry. Shaka Zulu, just from the time you used the word bullocks. Shaka Zulu says, it appears Cayman has sold its soul to the international community pressures by forcing a significant portion of the locals into unbanked status. Why is that not being addressed? Shaka Zulu, Cayman government refuses to protect the locals. Certain conversations, Shaka Zulu, and certain things that has even been pointed out on this space, in this space. Unless these questions are really asked directly when our leaders are actually having conversations on platform, and you put a little bit more context before, like you do an explanatory thing for everyone to understand, you would never know. When this happens on these forums and stuff, not everybody even catch, Shaka Zulu, what you're referring to, because it's only recently from a civic perspective that certain level of conversations are being had. And it's almost like we're playing catch up, because many of persons feel like we have developed so quickly. Certain sectors have been left behind. And it's because of this very same reason. We were not having this level of dialogue, this level of civic education, and respectfully, people being able to voice their opinion and coming from different perspectives. But Shaka Zulu, I challenge you to capture that statement and those questions, because I heard Sandra say that on her show that the Minister of Finance and possibly the Premier will be making appearances on her show. And maybe you can throw that to question at them. And hopefully persons who tune on here will be listening whenever that happens. But I challenge you to question, because I know you're always on there. But it'll be interesting to get that response. Harry says, as a follow-up, I think the British government would have been the first out of the gates if Russia or China had done something like America just did to, let me tell you, I don't even want to play that out, Harry. Jesus wept and died. And their response to this was, well, we need to wait for the Americans to explain themselves, like they're going to do that. Harry further says, we know, they know, everybody knows they violated international law. It was completely illegal with no legitimate justification and should be widely condemned. But they won't. And the reason they won't is because they are scared, for lack of a better word, shitless by Donald Trump and his whacked job regime, Harry says further. And then, ICE has become a second Gestapo, and they're crack on about Britain being a police state. Well, I tell you what, Harry, that has gotten worldwide attention with what has happened. And I think there's a different perspective now that's being shown now from the government standpoint as to what transpired to Miss Good there, that unfortunately lost her life. I think was it Wednesday. And what that has garnered is worldwide attention for all of the complaints now that is being made by ICE, and their role, their rights are now being questioned, and all of that sort of stuff. So if they're carrying out orders by a specific administration, and how they're actually executing those orders now is getting even American citizens. You're hearing more and more, even American citizens living in the United States are just like petrified. Like they are like, how much more of this can we actually put up with? It's like you're scared to go to empty the trash. You're scared to go to a drive-through. You're scared to go to the supermarket or even church or go to school. It's to the point now that neighbors are looking out for their brothers and their sisters, and they're preparing meals. They're taking meals. It's almost like a lockdown because you're being targeted just if you meet a profile. And they do what they have to do and then ask questions afterwards. And people are saying that that's an infringement on their human rights. And this is something that freedom of rights, that is something that the United States is known for. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression. That was once the American dream. Is it still taking on those characteristics now with everything that's happening? And as you've stated here, what ICE is doing and the way in which they're carrying out their duties. The stupidest thing, Harry says, is Donald Trump said he was going to run Venezuela now. They're not going to run Venezuela, but if the government does anything he doesn't like, they're going to kidnap government. Okay. I think you corrected something there. Harry continues to say, I mean, I've always said I would rather live in a European country, excluding Belarus and Russia, compared to any US state. I've heard other people say that they would prefer any other European country besides the US, Harry, to be honest. I've heard that more and more right now, to be honest. I think there was a question being thrown out. Who would you prefer to be ruled by, Russia, China, or the US? It's funny, Canada didn't come up into it. It's weird, but that has been a question thrown out there. So to say that these are not just things go through your mind when you're taking a shower or you're laying down or you have a quiet moment having a cup of coffee or you're having a drink with somebody or a pint with somebody. These are real things that people are asking themselves amongst different gatherings and stuff. The holidays just went by and there were a lot of current events that ensued around many tables. And here in the Cayman Islands, we play dominoes and cards and that sort of stuff. A lot of these conversations were being had. Jimbo says, and much more information is coming out on that issue. Oh, this is in regards to Good Case. More coming forward, more video, and who the individual is what she was about. Oh, and who the individual is and what was she all about. I get what you're saying. Damian Henry says, I have noticed the world is split in two sides, and Venezuela is, aka, on the wrong side, not aligned with the United Kingdom. Interesting observation. Harry, the greatest thing about Americas is that they are completely incompetent about history. Harry, I went and did some digging, to be honest, and I got to agree with you there. It's almost like they're trying to rewrite it. And you scratch your head and you keep going down into one rabbit hole and you're trying to put the pieces together. And it's because, I swear their history is being rejigged for whatever reason. And if you got a set of old Encyclopedia Britannica or some historical book back in the days, you better want to hold on to those because it's going to change at the rate things are going. That I don't know your age, but for me, for grandchildren, I'm going to have to be able to explain it to my grandchildren. And I'm not going to be able to just go on Google anymore because it's being altered pretty much on a daily basis. Jem says, as I had commented before, we should wait. Yes, you did. And not make assumptions. You did. You repeated that over and over from Wednesday, Jimbo. I know you did. Harry says they crack on about King George III and British tax tranny. But they're that stupid. The Sugar Act actually reduced tax. Yeah, you guys did something the other day over there in the UK. In regards to that, yeah, I saw that come up when I was doing some research on your new advertising ban for junk food. How's that working out? That took effect on the 1st of January, where certain things can't be advertised on TV certain times of the morning, and you totally banned certain junk food as well completely from online. So I'm expecting things, more positive stuff to come out of there. People like you. There you go. Harry, I mean, I have always been a supporter of a lot of what is the British Empire. Admittedly, there was a lot that was completely apparent. Yeah, you can't say that. It is true, such as slavery, the Irish potato famine, and the first Bengal famine, and a lot of the other things. And some people, my love, cannot get over that. Jamaica had an outpouring, supporters who were for and against even the royal visit when Harry and somebody else had visit there. And they were just like, get out of here. Why are you even here? The gall of you even coming here. And some people just can't get over that. And other jurisdictions as well in the region, they're like, thank God we're not under the British. And they go back. They can't get out of this slavery, even though I can't. I have not been impacted personally. I've never raised up listening or hearing my grandparents talking about it. But I see movies, I read books, and I can only imagine. But I can't honestly tell you that I can even relate to what it is. It would be only based on what I have read or have been depicted in different movies. Harry also says, but I then look at Britain, led the world in abolishing slavery. Britain was one of the best states when it comes to decolonization in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Harry further says, if you look at a lot of these successful countries in the world today, a lot of them are former British colonies. Yeah, which begs the question, but at what expense? Why they chose and opt to get out? They're saying that, they wanted this whole independence because the cost, the control, the freedom of remaining under them was just too much, and they felt that it was the way out. But how much have really done better after they've exited is the question. When you look at that, it's interesting to see how it is unfold. But I must say, you hit a chord there in regards to a number of the older locals here and their reasoning for not really being fond of the British. And they're saying just even how it is actually structured right now in modern day society, that it is it's outdated, and this indirect tax that you're paying because you're a BOTC and all this sort of stuff behind the scenes, that a lot of regular members of society, unless you actually go and do your own research, they're feeling that right now it's time for you to get on your own. But again, there's a flip side to that. What are the pros and the cons? And you're looking at other jurisdictions who have indeed stepped away. Do the comparison. Are they better off? Are they better off? Or have they fallen back? And that is one of the questions that I will continue to ask. And that's what I actually continue to look at. Harry also says, I've always said that that was overblown because most of the British empires were governed by third parties. Harry further says, a lot of people talk about India, but 1/3 of India was ruled by prince, prince, princely states. And Harry says that after the 1936 Constitution, India sets its own tariff rates. It paid no taxes directly or indirectly to the British government. And no Indian could be conscripted to the armed forces or enlisted, to the armed forces amongst other things. So obviously they charted their own course. But look at the population right now. Recently, Harriet, local news, you can Google this for yourself. The Cayman Islands recently met with leaders from India in an agreement to, actually having engagements and a better relationship with India as well. We do have a growing number of Indians here in the Cayman Islands. And if you Google that, you will actually see recently that our leader, our premier, was actually shaking hands and other government officials with India. So it's going to be interesting. British governors also usually had pretty strict parameters from the colonial office and were on average very lenient compared to other European governors. Hey, Connie, you're late to class. Jimbo was crying. He couldn't figure out what happened to you. You are very late this evening, but it's always good to have you here. Late. See. Harry says newspaper and media, for example, were very rarely censored by British colonial administration. And now Jimbo says he's acknowledging. Yep, Connie here. Keith. You can never compare the United States of America and England to the Cayman Islands. But in this case, for this format, no, Keith, from what angle? We're not doing it, to be honest, because at the end of the day, I think this falls. I said it here on an earlier podcast that when you listen to some of our people, Keith, we speak as though we're an independent jurisdiction. And we realize that we're not independent. So the comparison of the United States and all that sort of stuff, us, UK, and we are still, honestly, just governed by the United Kingdom. And there's just certain things that we would never be able to do. We heard Denny, who says even our Constitution was written by the United Kingdom. And at the end of the day, even though we can go back, any amendments to that, we have to get UK support. The will of the people, we can go back, and we know that that's not the easiest thing to change. And the comparison was more for discussion, Keith, more than actually for way of life. But I think that everyone knows that the undercurrent, the foundation of who we are as a jurisdiction, how we operate, how we continue to evolve and develop, as long as we remain under the United Kingdom, that will always be some sort of, here's the line in the sand. Yes, we will entertain the conversations, but you can't go beyond here because BOTC. Yeah, the internet is no good. Are you having problems? I've heard people complaining that it's been buffering. Are you having problems though? Because people were complaining on other platforms, streaming is become a nightmare. Yeah, I mean, the Cayman Islands can't really conduct foreign policy. Yes, very, 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 very limited, Harry, very. The Cayman Islands can't sign binding treaties. Yep, certain tables, Harry, we're not even at because we are there for a presence. Certain rooms you can't be in, you're pretty much there. And you hope the feedback is what they get. This is why building those bridges is so key in the relationships with certain cabinet ministers, especially for foreign affairs. The one who's responsible for here is key. Yeah. The Cayman Islands don't have an international intelligence service. What is Connie saying? Yes, you're here. And it can't even amend its own constitution. Yes, I said that earlier on. You're quite right. Yeah. Yes. So at the end of the day, hey, Sandy. So good. I hope you're listening. See? Yes, Auntie. Yep. So, Harry. So, no, you cannot compare Britain to American Cayman Islands, but if you actually read and listen to the conversation, it wasn't really comparison. Yeah, I kind of cleared it up. Thank you, Harry. Whoever this Harry is, welcome. It's good to have you here. And you really kept me going this evening. And gosh, this is the first time I'm actually communicating. You got me at Bullocks. Yeah, you got me at Bullocks. Really took me back. Jimbo, Connie's in the house. You celebrating? I don't know what's going on though. I don't know. So yes, what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to shut down everything maybe this weekend and just restart everything because I don't know what's going on, to be honest. I will just have to reboot everything. Yes. So with that, we got 15 minutes, but if it's that bad, maybe I may end and exit stage left a little earlier today. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, Harry, you got me at Bullocks. I do what you says. I do apologize, but I'm a constant. Oh, nice. Good. Well, we love you here because we learned a lot. I learned, but I was able to keep up. And if there were things that I didn't get immediately, I came around based on you elaborating and it helped. This space, Harry, is really civic. We've elevated talk here in the Cayman Islands with the Sabrina's podcast show. And just in case, we're live Monday to Friday from 5 until 7. Okay. And Monday to Friday. So this weekend, I'm going to shut this entire system down because I'm hearing people are having some problems with the internet. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, we love feedback like this as we continue to build this space. We're trying to make sure we keep it respectful. Everybody's opinions matter. And as long as it's respectful, once your comments are not rude, we entertain you. I don't even give warnings when it comes to banning. I will ban you. My Facebook is coming through perfectly clear. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Jim, for telling me that. But I did know some people were having some problems on YouTube. Keeps buffering as well. Harry, it's okay on my end. Thank you so much. It's bad. If you spoke 10 words, I only heard 4. Really? Oh, wow. Restart. But nevertheless, I'm going to shut the entire system down this weekend since I'm not back live until Monday. And then I'll probably do some upgrades. There are updates in the background. Keith Orrit. Let's make sure we get these comments out here. Is the British government allowed to come to the Cayman Islands and force our young men into war that we do not agree with? No, I don't think that's the case, Keith. Even our regiment, how it's set up, they answers to the governor. And even though there would be some serious legislative changes that has to happen, even for our regiment was designed just to take it on that perspective, to put it into context for you. They're only allowed to respond to natural disasters, but for frontline to go to war, no, I'm not telling you that it wasn't envisaged for it to be exactly what it is. But we were not educated. It was not presented in the true form that it was supposed to be presented in the first place. Why that grouping got a bad brand. I got elected to political office in 2021. They were new as me, and we have never had the real conversation about our regiment. Good evening, caller. You got 10 minutes to go. What's on your mind? Welcome.
Evening. That's all?
Yeah.
That question about the regiment.
No, it
What
wasn't
you
a
said.
question. I just went into it.
Yeah. Well, no, the question about whether our people could be taken into war.
Oh, yes.
The answer to that question is they absolutely can be.
Why? How? Because we
the
were a
gov-
BOTC?
because it's the UK that's responsible for defense. And when when it came up, what happened, I think, is there was a little change made so that the governor would have to consult with the premier. But you have to understand that's kind of like, well, what do you think? And he's like, I don't think we should send any Cayman into war. And then the governor says, noted, and then they go to war.
Harry says,
So,
if Britain declares war, which is kind of mirroring what you said, the Cayman Islands is automatically at war, although I'm not sure whether the Cayman Islands are subject to this conscription. And he says, because I think the government in the Cayman Islands would have to pass a legislative consent motion to allow the British government to introduce.
Conscription, yes.
Conscription, yeah.
That's correct. But if you are a member of the regiment, and the governor says you're going.
That would be a direct order, because right now, from what I understand, they're under her. Like, yeah, so she would have to do like an executive order or something like that. Yeah.
Well, you see, okay. Whether government is honest with the public is a very important thing. And at the time that the bill was released to the public, now it's called the Defense Act.
Yes.
Right. Now think about this for a second. The bill was called the Defense bill, right? And we were being told that Cayman Islands was not establishing a military.
But the words in that Defense Act is everything. Everything.
Well, at the time, Minister Bryan had a meeting at the Georgetown Town Hall to ask the public their opinion about it. And I went to the event, and they had, I think Mr. Howell was there, and he was explaining to the public, the provisions of the bill. And I said that what we're doing is we're establishing a military. And he said, no, he said, we're establishing a regiment.
You don't want to use certain words. I was even cautioned about that. And I'm reading the act, and I'm like, but what do you mean? I was actually frowned upon when I used certain things, even doing annual reports on the floor of Parliament. I had to be cautious with what words I used. And I'm like, this is not making sense, because it's what the law is saying.
Well, I said to him, sir, a regiment is just a division of a military. So what do you mean this is not a military? And I think it took about an hour of back and forth before he was willing to admit that that's in fact what we were doing. Because what they were saying was, oh, this is to help clean up in the aftermath of a hurricane and all this kind of stuff, right? And you see, to me, that level of dishonesty is extremely detrimental, because now we have people thinking that, what the purpose of the regiment is, which has
nothing.
It can include cleaning up.
But that's not the foundation. If you read that is not the foundation of that act. Yeah.
And I mean, he finally admitted that what I was saying was correct. But we shouldn't, that's not how a government should be interacting with the public.
But they're fearful of losing votes if they use military, war, ammunition, training, all of this sort of stuff. Caller, trust me, some of them are just so fearful of political suicide by calling it for what it is, which is why it's key that we have discussions of this level and call that act out for what it is. And people can sensitize themselves to it just by even reading the first part of the act to see the words and the definition and what they mean and say what it is. It's not just for cleaning up after natural disasters. That was not what that law was made for.
Yeah. But there's one other note that I'd like to touch on since we don't have a lot of time today.
5 minutes, if that, because there's another show.
You said our Constitution.
Earlier on, I was talking about that our Constitution was written for us or by us. I was trying to rethink how you phrased it on another episode, that not even our Constitution was written for us or by us. Something you said.
Yeah, but it's not our Constitution.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Our Constitution. It's the UK's Constitution.
Yes, it's their Constitution for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if it was ours, then we could change it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the case. And let me give you another example of blatant deception. One of the previous governors, it might have been the previous governor, I think, the most recent one. He tried to tell me on another program that, we're not a colony anymore because Cayman has devolved powers. And at that moment, what my understanding of devolved was that the powers that were given to us couldn't be taken back. But he's saying, and because in the current Constitution, the UK can change the law to be whatever they want it to be. And I'm thinking to myself, so you can change it to say whatever you want in your interests, you have this ultimate nuclear power to do. But you're telling us that we're running the show. How could we be running the show, but you could override us? Right? And it's if the public could appreciate how much of a lie what they're selling us is, I mean, if that doesn't upset people, there's no hope for us developing ourselves and looking out for our interests in accordance with the UK's obligations to the UN. Because the UK was one of the authors who shaped the language in the UN Charter that deals with Cayman and the other overseas territories having the right to self-determination and how we should be governed until we make such a decision. And in that document itself, it uses the word paramount. And it says that our interests, regardless of the type of interest we're talking about, our interest is paramount. But the UK legislated in its constitution for the Cayman Islands that their interest is paramount. And that's contrary to the UN Charter.
Yeah.
But
we got 1 minute.
The people who are looking out for us, the politicians, they actually don't look out for our interests. They sell us out every opportunity they get.
We need to continue this conversation.
Yes. So we'll talk another time about it. But
Definitely.
I just wanted to make those 2 points.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the clarification.
I hope that we could get to a point where we stop thinking or repeating the brainwashing that they have done to us. It's not
well,
ours.
We'll continue here. Thank you so much,
Take
Danny.
care.
Yes, have a good weekend. There, family, we have traveled through this week of headlines. We didn't even capture all of them, from Portland to justice to the care of we didn't even get into the elders with what we're saying, having to decide what's happened. But what matters most is how we respond to these challenges. And as we step into the weekend, let's carry forward any lessons that you may have taken away, have learned this week, or even the uncertainty. And, we can choose clarity even in division. We can also choose unity even when we're challenged. But reach out. I encourage you, and I'm imploring each and every one of you to reach out to your MP, engage with them, and demand that they tell you how they feel about some of these topics. And instances that are happening and that have been raised here, because none of these were actually envisaged or could even be think about on the campaign trail. So at the end of the day, I am minute by minute, it's changing and meetings are being had, but you are of value, of course. And at the end of the day, I want to thank you for all of your feedback. I want to thank Denny for calling. I want to thank this Harry guy for his feedback. Thank you for speaking. Thank you for listening. And thank you for being a part of this program. I'm sorry for those of you who had an issue with streaming us. But yes, Shaka Zulu says, I love you, Uncle Denny. Use of the term brainwash. Go out with this weekend. Turn off the news. Yes, I will. I will. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure bringing you another episode of Sabrina Speaks. Have a safe weekend. God bless. Love you lots. Until Monday. Take care.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.